My name is Ray Shears, and I live in Batavia, Illinois. I work with a local church, and my focus in that setting is working with homeless people. So that's the direction I've taken, and that is, at this point, the group I work with.
And how did you come across getting involved in such a program?
I knew about it, but actually I didn't even quite know what it was about, only because it was mentioned in Sunday services, and I attended regularly. And then when I met this person who obviously needed food and clothing, and then I realized that you could go to lunch, and we serve lunch twice a week, and during good times we serve supper once a week. And for the first 2 months I suggested it, he rejected it. He didn't want anything to do with it. And then one day he said, I think I might want to go.
Nice.
So I drove him there and said, you want me to come in with you? I've never been here. I've certainly been to the church, but not the lunch.
Well, let's go back a little bit. So now he's going to be going to church with you. How did you actually meet this gentleman?
I met him in the woods. I walk in the woods every day just about, and I noticed him around a lot, and I could tell from looking at him that he was probably homeless. And so I started bringing him food anonymously and leaving it where he could find it. And eventually a relationship developed. And so it was a long process.
Okay, so how did you come into like connecting and actually exchanging words with this Stephen?
Well, interesting story. I used to leave him food in a public restroom. He'd be in a stall, and I'd never actually seen his face or anything. And one day I went in and I realized he probably was homeless. And he was in there, and I recognized his backpack on the floor and knew it was him, and asked him if he was okay in there. Yeah, I'm okay. Okay. You need anything? No, I'm fine. Have you eaten today? I'll eat later. Okay. Well, if you're sure you're okay, I'll leave you alone. He said, yeah, I'm fine. So I decided as soon as I walked out the door, I'd start bringing food for him the next day. And the next day I brought a bag of food and water. It was the middle of winter, so you couldn't get water anywhere. And started leaving him food. I'd simply walk in, put the bag on the hand dryer, and tell him, there's food here if you want it. And the first day I did that, I figured, well, if he throws it in the garbage outside, I won't bother him again. And he never threw it away. And then I still didn't meet him face to face until somebody thought I was bringing him drugs and reported me to the police. And the police showed up one day and kind of nudged me off the path onto the stones, and very courteously started questioning me about what I was doing. And he said, are you feeding that guy? I said, yeah, I'm bringing him food, yeah. And he said, well, we just searched him, and he's okay, and he doesn't have anything on him that he shouldn't have. And we searched your bag, and there's nothing in there that you shouldn't be bringing him. Just don't do it that way. And I said, okay, I won't do it that way. I'll figure out another way. Well, as I was walking back to my car, Stephen came out to meet me and introduced himself and thanked me for helping him. And that was the beginning of a 3-year plus relationship.
And now going back, I'm a little shocked because it's St. Charles, Illinois, and there's a lot of affluential individuals in St. Charles. Is there one homeless person in St. Charles, or is this a problem that we're not aware of?
Well, I know about 20 of them, so no, it's not an unusual situation. And no, it is a problem, and it goes unnoticed or simply avoided. And, you know, I have to say that It wasn't all that long ago when the people I know now and am friends with who happen to be homeless, I would have crossed the street to avoid. I fell into the same category. And I made the mistake of thinking, why the hell don't you get a job? McDonald's is hiring, Burger King's hiring, there's jobs you could get. Why don't you? Well, their situation is very, very different. And, the more people I met, the more I realized some of them cannot work because of mental or physical disabilities, and some of them, the longer you're out of work, the harder it is to get back into the workforce. Many of them are unskilled, although some of them are highly educated. Many of them don't have proper IDs in order to get employment. And the longer you're out of work and you haven't worked, people are going to say, well, what were you doing for 3 years? What do you do? Tell them I was homeless and wandering the streets all day? It's not a real good reference for a job.
Understood. So, I've talked to some friends of mine, and a lot of them, like you mentioned, why don't you just get a job? Put them in the category like this is their choice. Mm-hmm. Is this what you're finding with these 20 individuals that you're friends with?
I don't think it's ever been a choice. I think it's life has dealt them a bad hand, and life deals a lot of us bad hands. Some of us can deal with that problem, but many of them are not equipped to deal with it. And then you also have to bring in the issue of addictions, there is that. And the longer you're homeless, the more likely you're going to stay homeless. And mental illness usually comes into the picture, even if you went into homelessness not being have a mental problem, within 3 or 4 months, you're going to have one. Psychologists have proved that. So, and the life itself makes solving those problems particularly difficult. And most of them get no help whatsoever.
I know that we have programs for such people that end up, unemployed, end up homeless. Mm-hmm. There are link cards, there's mm-hmm. programs where we have Section 8 housing, disability insurance, where they can tap into their Social Security. How does one actually get a hold of, these state programs?
It's actually very difficult. Yes, you're absolutely right. There are link cards. One of the people I know very well, who's been homeless most of his life, and he's probably upper 50s, 60s, and he recently let his link card expire. Homeless people don't have an address. And if you send them official mail from the state of Illinois telling them your link card expires at the end of this month, you must do the paperwork to renew it. Well, he didn't get that information until several months later through another source. And by then, it was too late. And so now we're working to get that link card back for him. But even getting through to the state and going through the motions. The application was 18 pages long. And it was a lot of work just to get the application filled out and to get the application. But this is just one of the problems. I mean, they don't get mail where, right. We get mail daily. No, they don't get it. And now with COVID, we're finding people who were never homeless before homeless. Mm-hmm. Whole families homeless. I know some of them. So I know that they never thought they'd be homeless. And I think most of the people that have been lifers in homelessness never expected when they walked out the door or they had the door slammed on them or taken away from them that they would be homeless for the rest of their lives.
How does one go from an ordinary world that you were living in to this extraordinary world that you're now in?
I imagine there's many ways. For me, I was simply set on this path, and I have not wavered from that path. And I knew that for whatever reason, I'm supposed to be doing this, and so I continued to do it. And you're absolutely right, compassion is at the core of this. And it doesn't happen overnight, and it's one of those things that evolves in a person. And but once you develop it, you extend it to everybody else, whether they're homeless or not. And it changes your life.
And you know, we're all nudged, and we're all pointed in a certain direction, and all of our listening is different. I call it nudged or popcorn, breadcrumbs, and popping. And some of us listen. It took a lot for me to get to where I'm at today to be able to hear this, and you're able to hear it. How do we bring awareness to this?
Well, I think it needs to be an organized effort. And too often, agencies work in isolation from each other. And there's no coordinated effort to actually address the problem and work together and find out, what do your people need? We got this. I often deliver extra food and clothing to the Salvation Army if we have it. And they didn't ask me for it, but we know it's there, and people use that all the time. People need to be aware that some of us are extremely lucky. We're in a setting right now that is very, very pleasant to be in. You got walls and windows and doors. I know people who don't have them.
Right.
And that's the message people need to hear. And it's, you know, a lot of people I know don't even believe that COVID exists.
Right.
And in spite of evidence. And it's even more difficult with a population that most people don't want anything to do with. They simply don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, turning a blind eye in most cases. Yeah, when you step into that extraordinary world and see that cause and how you can make an impact in it, it's very hard to go back to that ordinary.
And there are some
life.
success stories too. I mean, sometimes you have a breakthrough with people and you actually can help somebody get out of homelessness. And that is remarkable. There's 3 people right now we're working on very, very strongly because they have the possibility to do it now. And we've had to work a long, hard time to get them to that point. And I can't say it happens all that often, but it happens enough to make you realize, okay, you know, I can feed and I can sometimes shelter them and I can clothe them, but I know nothing's really going to fundamentally change. And then sometimes it does.
Yeah. How could we fix this across America?
Well, we have to look at the problem differently than, obviously what we've been doing didn't work. There's a lot of issues that these people need to have addressed. Mental health is a huge problem. This is something that there has to be a focus on. You know, there was a time in education where if you were physically disabled, you didn't go to school. That's all there was to it. If you had a mental disability, you didn't go to school. You know, you were usually hidden away in a room in the house. But we've moved forward in that direction. Now we recognize these people have needs that aren't easy to address, but they can be addressed. And will they ever completely fit into society? Some of them will, some of them won't. There's degrees of that. And that's the same thing with homeless people, I think. There are degrees of success. And I know, I've seen success stories. And there are other stories I know, and unless there's divine intervention, there's not a whole lot we can do except give them shelter and comfort and food and clothing and things like that, and hope.
How do we get the homeless from that lower level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs to that level of self-awareness?
I wish I had the answer.
Right?
I wish I had the answer. Like I said, I am not an expert in this field. What I know is people. And every single one of them has a different set of needs. Every single one of them came into homelessness in a different way. Right now, they share pretty much the same world, but they are individuals, and each one of them has to be treated just like kids in school. If you treat them all the same, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. You can't treat somebody with a disability the same way you treat somebody without one. You have to accept the fact that meet them where they are. If you meet them where they are, you might be able to bring them to a higher level. But if you never meet them, you're not going to get them there. Right. And society pays the cost anyway. Court costs. These people get arrested for trespassing. They got nowhere to sleep. Everywhere they sleep is trespassing. So what do you want them to do? Okay, so you send them to court. Oh, okay. All right, I bring you to court, and we sit there, and we sit there, and we sit there, and nothing gets accomplished. Or they're going to give you a fine that you can't pay. Or they throw you in jail. And what good does that do? I know some people who are homeless who say, I wish they would put me in jail in the winter. Mm-hmm. If only. Yeah. But they don't tend to do that.
Looking at the homeless through the lens, just like people are doing right now at home, they can see us through the lens. One way is visually. Mm-hmm. People see things differently. Some people choose to not see things. Some don't choose and they just can't see it. We call them blind spots, scotomas. In addition to that, it's the listening. I really feel the way people listen matters, and different levels of listening, where some are shut off, locked out of certain conversations, or they're locked into certain conversations. How do you think we can change the listening with homelessness?
Well, I guess one way of doing it would be to listen to a homeless person talk.
Yeah.
When I would go downtown, there were scores of them, homeless people. And I got to the point when I started knowing other homeless people that I can actually talk to these people. And do you know what? They love being talked to. Mm-hmm. It makes a whole world of difference that somebody listens to them. And I think that's a step. Just look at these people as real human beings who have the same needs you have, including the need to be heard. They all have a story, and most of them would want to tell that story. Maybe not on the first or the second or third meeting, but eventually those stories come out. And they're fascinating stories. They are fascinating stories. And when you know a person's story, you know that person. And then you can apply that story to other people. And yeah, that's a different way of perceiving.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you very much for being here today, sharing your story with us, your purpose, and what you're up to. Are there any final words that you want to share with us?
This is a mission that needs a lot of organization and support. And it's not one that's going to be easy, but it's not one to ever give up on.
I agree. Thank you.
You're welcome.